Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jon Myer podcast. Now, I have a special episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the 2024 State of FinOps survey. And joining me today is Erik Carlin, who's the co-founder and chief product officer at ProsperOps. Now, before I bring Erik onto the show, a few disclaimers that all images that we have on there is a huge shout out to the FinOps Foundation and their survey. We have them on a slide share for everybody to see on some of the specific topics that we're talking about. Now, once more, before I bring Erik on, we're going to be doing it in a different style. It's going to be called like the rundown. Yes, it's almost like ESPN and stuff. We're going to box ourselves into 4 minutes for each slide, somewhere right around there. Talk to you, give our thoughts and insights on it and the differentiating factors between 2023 and 2024. How about we kick things off and bring Erik onto the show? Erik, thanks for joining me.
Hey, John. Great to see you again.
Erik, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Now, before I actually bring up our first slide, I've got a quick question for you. What were your thoughts on the most recent survey for the state of the FinOps?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want this to be about the FinOps Foundation, but can I talk about ProsperOps for just like 30 seconds?
Of course.
Have you ever seen the movie Trading Places by Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in the 80s?
Yes. Do you have some tips on some orange juice or some bacon?
Well, what's funny is, the mission of ProsperOps is to automate away uh, waste and sort of inefficient spend in public cloud. And this is something we've been, working towards, for years now. And, in Trading Places, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd are trying to corner the market on orange juice commodities. And there's this report that they're trying to get their hands on. Of course, it's massively illegal with insider trading, but in the end, they are able to manage their investments in a way that sort of aligns with the report that comes out. And when I saw the results of the 2024 survey, we're going to look at it in just a minute. All of the top priority items for FinOps practitioners sort of perfectly align with the things that ProsperOps is working towards automating and delivering for customers. So I couldn't help but think of that movie, which is just one of the classic 80s movies. So it made me feel old, though. I asked our CTO if he'd ever seen it, and he was born after the movie was released. So it makes me feel old.
I don't know when it was released, but I've seen it so many times growing up. And you know what? It actually is. I'm feeling a little nostalgia that I might have to go put it on tonight or something. So, Erik, thanks for bringing that up. Now, everybody, I'm going to be talking about the State of the FinOps survey. We're going to be talking about key priorities, secondary priorities, optimizing your cloud services, and then obviously automation. We're going to box ourselves into 4 minutes. We're going to put a timer on the screen. Hopefully, we stay in. If not, we'll go like negative in the buzzer. All right, Erik, are you ready for me to kick things off with our first slide?
Let's go.
Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is key priorities. Now, let's see. It said current FinOps practitioner key priorities. This is for 2024 and 2023. Now,
Yep.
on the screen, I have basically the number one for 2023, and I've been talking about this all up until the survey came out, is empowering engineers to take action, then unit economics, and then the adoption of FinOps. In 2024, things got changed and flipped around. Erik, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is interesting. So historically, if you look back at 2022 as well, I believe the number one priority was getting engineers to take action. And so that was kind of consistently the top challenge. And what you're seeing now is this flip to reducing waste as the number one challenge, and then managing commitment-based discounts. And so these are really what you're seeing, because 2023 was sort of a challenging year, like macroeconomically. There was a massive focus on really optimizing costs. And if you look at the cloud providers' revenues as well, you kind of see that. But to me, there's really been a macro shift in the priority to really tackling those activities, which can make a huge dent, in the cloud bill and maximize spend. And one of the ways I like to think about this is, if the cloud providers just came out with their Q4 earnings, and if you add together Amazon, Google, and Azure, the three big providers, and you look at their quarterly revenue times four, so what will their revenue be going forward for the next year? It's over $200 billion of spend is what people spend on the big three hyperscalers, and of course that's growing. And it's not actually in the FinOps Foundation survey, but there's other surveys that have been done that say people estimate about 30% of their spend is waste. That is, either they're overpaying for things or they have resources they're running that they could turn off and still be able to successfully run their business or their application or whatever without them. And so this is inefficient spend, inefficient money that's flowing to the providers that doesn't need to be there. Well, 30% of 200 billion is like $60 billion of waste. And so that's just a tremendous amount of money. And I think what you're seeing is companies and practitioners are really realizing that and wanting to go kind of attack that waste pool and try to reclaim that efficiency and keep it kind of in their cloud budgets. And so that commitment-based discount management, really kind of the top two ways you can make a dent in your cloud bill. And that aligns perfectly with this trend of 2023 of the macroeconomic conditions.
Now, Eric, we're almost out of time for our 4 minutes, but I noticed in 2024, if you looked at the top two, rate and usage, right?
Exactly. Rate optimization, usage optimization. If you're trying to attack your cloud bill, these are really the two techniques you have. You either pay less for what you're using, which is rate optimization, or you kind of use less stuff, which is usage optimization. So again, um, it really matters getting that cloud bill down. Really, really matters, and that's why you're seeing these two, um, priorities sort of 1-2 now for 2024. Not to say these other things aren't important. Getting engineers to take action is still, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So still one of the top 10 priorities, but just not as important as it's historically been.
Yeah, you noticed in 2023, the little red arrow is pointing that it actually went down from 2022. And my assumption when I was going into for 2024 was that empowering engineers to take action wasn't going to be the number one priority. It was basically reducing your usage and your commitment. Now, speaking of some of the increased priorities that we're going to talk about on the next slide, is that the increased priorities now in 2023, I have the same slide up from previously. And the reason I do that is because in 2024, they kind of broke it out into what's, I want to say secondary, or it's an increased priority from, the standard or the key priorities. Eric, talk to me a little bit more about it, because on the top one is enabling automation and then empowering engineers to take action.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting. If you look at the left chart, which again is 2023, and empowering engineers to take action actually decreased in priority, but it's still the number one priority, which implies it was the number one priority for 2022, just not as important in 2023. Um, if you look then at the chart on the right, this is basically showing the biggest deltas. So, what are the things that have increased the most in priority year over year? They're absolute, where they fit in the priority stack, um, may still be lower, but it's increased in terms of its relative importance year over year. So, enabling automation, number one increase in priority year over year. Again, I think what people are finding, again, this is sort of what we've realized and why we started ProsperOps, is that the cloud is so increasingly complex that it's very difficult to achieve consistent cost savings outcomes unless you automate them. If you're kind of playing whack-a-mole by running a report every now and then and trying to clean things up, that delivers some incremental benefit. But really, to kind of achieve that consistent cost savings, you've got to sort of automate activities. And so, if you look on the left, enabling automation was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Eighth place in 2023. If you go back one slide, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's still eighth place overall. So it hasn't changed in its absolute ranking. But if you look at it on a year-over-year basis, it has increased it's increased 50%, right? So last year, only 18% of the folks said that was a key priority. Now it's almost 40%, high 30s. So I think that's, again, speaks to this idea of the importance of optimizing costs, really making a dent in the cloud bill, How do you do that? Rate optimization, usage optimization. It's not enough just to do that with humans and kind of individual one-off tactics, kind of playing whack-a-mole, although that does work. But to really maximize the the cost savings, you have to automate and you have to kind of deliver it on a consistent basis. So I think that's really the kind of the key message here: a massive increase in automation as a priority. Note also too, empowering engineers to take action, second highest increase year over year. So that is still definitely not unimportant. It's just kind of taken a bit of a back seat to other activities that really can make a dent in the bill.
I think that it's taken a backseat only because enabling automation, now they don't have to really kind of empowering them to physically take action. And we're going to talk about that on a future slide about actual how automation plays a key role and whether it's fully automated, human intervened automated, or no automation. Automation is key and it's kind of jumped up there and it's continuously increasing. Now, while empowering engineers to take action does decrease as one of the key priorities, but still overall increases. There was almost 1,300 respondents for 2024 State of the FinOps survey. I don't have the results for 2023, but if you look at the numbers and the overall number of respondents for it, it has definitely increased overall for the number of respondents for it. Leadership buy-in is still kind of fluctuating down there. It's kind of been in 2023 and 2024 near the bottom, and I don't think it's really too much of a buy-in aspect of it. Is that people are still realizing that FinOps is key and needed in the environment.
I think the one other thing to note before we move on to the next chart is what decreased in priority as well. And so the
Yep.
top decrease year over year in priority is staffing and acquiring talent, which I think perfectly coordinates with this idea of more automation. So you're seeing this trend where companies are looking to automate more and do less with humans. That's certainly not to say that the human FinOps practitioner is not critically important. It absolutely is. But to really attack this problem at scale, to really make the biggest dent in the cloud bill, you don't do that with just hiring more and more people. You do that with hiring people that can really attack the things that people can excel at, and then you sort of put computers on those tasks that computers can excel at, and it's that's really how you scale and make a dent. So interesting to me, the top mover and the up and the top kind of decrease down both correlate in a way that makes a lot of sense.
Eric, that's an actually interesting point that you put out is that having the right staff for it or the need or the skill set, if you have more automation, then having more staff to kind of do that and implement those changes and empower those changes, I actually see a correlation there where you're not going to need as much to do because you can do more within the automation. Eric, I'm going to move on to our next slide. Our next slide is
Yep.
actually going to talk about optimizing across all services remain challenging. Now, this is the number of services. No, we're going to be talking about some of the top three: compute, data, storage, and databases. On the left-hand side is 2023, and on the right is 2024. Eric, do you want to talk to me a little bit more about what you're seeing here?
I guess the first observation is the FinOps Foundation kind of likes horizontal charts now versus vertical bar
And we can
charts.
flip it.
Yeah, so if you take the right chart and you rotate it 90 degrees to the left, you basically have the same chart. So, or very, very close to the same chart. And what you're seeing if you do that is that the top three haven't moved in priority. Number one is compute. Number two is data and storage. Number three is database. And you may have some variants. AI has now kind of entered the fold in 2024 as one of the services being tracked, et cetera. But like serverless is pretty far down on each, hybrid as well, kind of towards the bottom. But I think the key thing to sort of note about this chart, unsurprisingly, is that the things that people optimize the most directly correlate with the things that people spend the most money on their cloud bill. Makes complete sense, right? So, for example, at ProsperOps, we're managing almost $2 billion of compute alone usage annually. So over $2 billion, $2 to $3 billion of overall cloud spend. If we look at the usage in aggregate and we say, where do people spend of the cloud bill, like what percentage goes to which category of service. Number one is compute. It's about 60% of the average cloud bill is compute. Second is database, and third is storage. They're almost tied. So two and three, and altogether that's maybe 75% of the overall cloud bill, más o menos. And so if you look here again at what you're optimizing, compute one, data and storage two, database three, makes perfect sense. The things people are optimizing are the things they spend the most on their cloud bill. Again, trying to really make a dent in the bill, and make sense. You spend time on the things that allow you to kind of get the best return on that investment and optimization. So makes sense. Not much of a change year over year, but does correlate with spend. I think that's the key takeaway here on this slide.
What I'm noticing is that before in 2023, we have compute data, the database, the backup and retention, and then containers. But in 2024, containers has jumped up above backup
Yeah.
and retention. And I'm assuming the more use, the more the adoption, not only of containers. Eric, help me understand on 2024, we have heavy optimization. And I'm assuming like somebody is managing for it, really kind of doing an automated job at doing their not only their rate and helping them kind of utilize some of those things, and then the basic optimization. Help me understand the difference between the two.
I think this is really just level of effort. So maybe one could be, you know, heavy might be doing rate and usage optimization, and basic might just be doing one of the two, or the amount of effort they're putting into, one of those two activities. Maybe I'm doing usage optimization, but I haven't automated it, or I'm just spending a little bit of time on it. And so I think it's just a function of both, time and effort invested into really trying to, reduce cost in those various activities. It is a good observation that containers kind of moved up, although if you look, they're very close in 2023 and they're pretty close in 2024 as well. So, I think their rough priority hasn't changed too much, although I would expect over time as container adoption increases that becomes more of a priority. I think what you do notice too, if you look at the blue, like ignoring or not relevant optimization, those top three services have the slimmest amount of blue, and you start to see the blue jump up, once you get to four and beyond. Again, I think that correlates to this idea that compute, database, and storage are really the top three costs where people focus the majority of their effort, and then they spend time on the other activities, as it makes sense, relative to their spend pattern.
I agree with you. Now we got to jump on to our last and final slide that we're going to be talking about. And of course, we got to talk about automation. Now, in 2023, respondents are strong in cost allocation, room for improvement with right sizing and automation. 2024, the question is still there, but kind of how involved are practitioners with automation? So automation plays a key role in it. What I'm looking at on the here is in 2023, we have the crawl, walk, run from cost allocation. And in 2024, we have fully automated human. Eric, I really need to understand this because we're not dictating and not showing crawl, walk, run in 2024. Help me understand the slide.
Yep. Let's start with 2023. The way to interpret that chart is the FinOps Foundation did surveys, and they asked by capability, which capabilities do you feel like you're crawling in? So you're kind of a novice, you're beginning, walking in, so you're kind of a moderate performance or outcomes, versus running, so you're excelling at it. And the chart is capabilities by run descending. So you can see the yellow bar on the left is the highest, and then it's the smallest as you move right. So these are the capabilities that people feel like they are maybe most mature in, is kind of a way to think about that. And so, things like cost allocation and managing costs, et cetera, people are most mature in. On the right, interestingly, you have automation as the capability that people are least mature in. You also see things like, managing commitment-based discount management is like fourth from the bottom, as an example. So if you then go to 2024, because there was such an increase and an emphasis on automation, the FinOps Foundation asked automation specific questions. And so the chart isn't necessarily about crawl, walk, run, or the survey, I should say. It was more about automation, but you can largely think about if you're running at a capability that implies that you've automated it. So in some ways, it's kind of another way of asking the same question, although automation is a little, there's other ways you can be mature without automating. But if you think about it in that context, it's kind of the same. The chart on the right is looking at fully automated descending. And so you see the green bar on the right is the highest, going down to the thinnest sort of green. And so, like cost allocation, 2023, the things that people felt like they were most mature in, 2024, the things they've most fully automated. So that correlates, not necessarily a big change there. I think what's interesting is if you look at maybe usage optimization as an example, since you talked about that, it's number 3 in terms of usage optimization or fully automated versus human approval plus automated. If you look in 2023 instead of 2024, it's kind of in the middle of the pack. Resource utilization and efficiency is kind of where it fits in. And so to me, it looks like that one has made a bit of an increase year over year. Again, this correlates it with it being a priority. It's the number 1 priority. So you're seeing people automate. You're seeing people place more of an emphasis on usage optimization. Again, it's really about how do we get that cloud bill down, which was a big key priority in 2023. Rate optimization is still fairly low in terms of being fully automated. This is kind of the world that ProsperOps lives in at present. Wouldn't surprise me if a bunch of those greens there are our customers. But still a lot more work to do there because it's second lowest here, and it was fourth lowest in 2023. So still a lot of opportunity there to save money through automating rate optimization. I think that's how to interpret the year over year diff here.
Yeah, the way I read the chart is like the yellow, the no automation in 2024 is really the crawl section in 2023, where we're not automated. We might be doing something in it, but we're still in the crawl thing where we're kind of manually looking at it and doing some of the stuff ourselves. And the fully automated, there's a lot of room for improvement. If you were to push that even a little bit more, the cost savings would be exponential, Erik.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is, we have a concept. We've talked before about it, John. We have a metric we've created called the effective savings rate. It's being embraced by other the platform providers themselves in some cases, by other tools, and by the FinOps Foundation. Most importantly, it's kind of becoming sort of a standard KPI, but that measures the effectiveness of your rate optimization activities. And so, on $200 billion of cloud spend a year, if you could increase your ESR by just 1%, if everybody in cloud could increase their ESR by 1%, that would be $2 billion a year of cloud spend. That is, that waste, that inefficiency of spend effectively that has been removed. And so, particularly for customers that are at scale, even moving the needle a little bit can have a massive impact on cloud spend.
I agree with you. Every little bit counts. Well, Erik, I got to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining me for the State of the FinOps survey in comparison of 2023 and 2024. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a blast.
All right, everybody. This has been an awesome episode on the Jon Myer podcast. A quick one and a rundown of some of the key things that came out of the FinOps survey. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify because guess what? We're out of here.